Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Today's story starts not with a goodbye, not with a suspicion, but with a smile that should have meant everything, and ended up meaning nothing. The door creaked open at exactly 6:43 p.m. Her suitcase thudded against the hallway wall. The wheels never rolled straight. I remember because I fixed them twice. She never noticed. She was smiling. Not the kind you wear when you're happy. The kind you wear when you think nobody knows. Beaming like a woman who just pulled off something bold. Carefree. Light. Almost high on life. "I'm home," she sang out. Like a character returning from a Hallmark movie montage. I didn't say a word. She kicked off her shoes and twirled once in the living room. Twirled. Then flopped onto the couch. Arms wide open like she just finished a marathon and deserved the world's applause. No hug. No, I missed you. Just that smile, stretched across her face like a ribbon hiding something broken underneath. I stood in the kitchen, staring. I'd set the table, cooked her favorite penne with garlic oil and blistered tomatoes. A single candle flickered between two wine glasses. She hadn't noticed. "Oh, wow," she finally said. "You did all this? You're too sweet." I was ice inside, because 15 minutes before she walked through that door, her airdrop had glitched, synced something to my laptop. A photo. Her in a hotel bed, with someone's hand, definitely not mine, tangled in her hair. I'd stared at it for so long I memorized the grain of the bedsheets. So no, I didn't care about the penne anymore. Or the fact that she was home. Home isn't a place where lies unpack themselves and stretch out like they own the place. She didn't notice my silence. Just kept talking. "You would not believe how stressful the workshops were," she rambled. Eyes closed, head tilted back. 12-hour days, breakout sessions, one lady cried during trust falls. I'm exhausted, but also like weirdly renewed. You know? I knew. She was glowing in a way that had nothing to do with networking or icebreakers. My hands were shaking under the table, but I kept them hidden. My voice barely made it out. Didn't know Sarasota had corporate retreats. Her eyes opened. Slowly. "What? You said the summit was in D.C. I said. "But your location tag, that airdrop, the hotel logo on the pillow." I didn't finish. Her smile vanished like a bubble popping midair. The room fell quiet. Even the candle seemed to dim. I hadn't asked a question. I hadn't raised my voice. All I did was say the name of a city. And just like that, the light behind her eyes blinked out. She didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Just blinked, like her brain had tripped over itself. Her lips twitched, searching for the right excuse. I waited. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I wanted to see what mask she'd put on first. Denial? Anger? That nervous fake laugh she used when someone caught her in a half-truth at dinner parties? That must be a glitch," she finally said, standing up too quickly. "Sometimes my phone does that, it sends random stuff. You know that. You always say my phone's cursed." She walked toward me slowly, like approaching a dog she wasn't sure would bite. I stepped back. Just once. Enough to make her stop in her tracks. "Was it just one photo?" she asked, her voice too light, too calculated. I didn't answer. I opened my laptop, turned the screen toward her. There were 5. One of her in bed, laughing. Another with 2 wine glasses clinking. One outside a balcony. Palm trees in the background. Her in a red dress I'd never seen before. The last one, her asleep, curled into someone's bare chest. Timestamped 2:12 a.m. Thursday night. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't even say sorry. She just let out a long, quiet sigh. "You weren't supposed to see those," she said, like she'd misplaced a grocery list. "Corbin, this doesn't have to be the end of us." That's when I laughed. Not loud. Just one sharp, breathless bark of disbelief. "You booked a trip with him while telling me you'd be in leadership training. You FaceTimed me from a hotel bathroom and said your coworker was snoring next door. Was that before or after the beach picnic?" Her face didn't change. She just stood there, hands in her pockets like this was a conversation about mismatched socks. "I wasn't planning to lie forever," I was gonna tell you next month. After your birthday. A wave of nausea rolled through me. You were waiting until after my birthday to ruin my life? No, she said softly. I was waiting until after your birthday, so I wouldn't ruin the weekend. I thought you'd want one last good memory. That did it. Something inside me cracked. Not loudly, just a thin fracture across something already brittle. I walked past her, out the door, into the dark. No plan, no bag, just the cold and the sound of her not chasing after me. I didn't go far. I told myself I'd walk until I cooled down, maybe hit the gas station for air and neon lighting, but my legs didn't carry me far. Just to the park across the street where our neighbor's kid once broke his arm falling off the monkey bars. I sat there on a cold bench, jacketless, phone buzzing in my pocket, and just stared at the ground. I don't know if I felt pathetic or numb. Maybe both. I didn't check the phone. I didn't want to see what lies looked like in text form. An hour passed. Maybe two. At some point, I started scrolling back through the photos she'd accidentally airdropped. Not for answers, there were none left, but for context. Like if I studied the background of each shot closely enough, I might spot a crack in her illusion. Maybe she looked sadder than I first noticed. Maybe she wasn't laughing with him but at something else. But no. Every frame confirmed what I already knew. She hadn't just been unfaithful. She'd been happy about it. Joyful. Like she'd found something she didn't know she was missing. When I finally went back home, the lights were off. No apology note. No dinner covered in plastic wrap. Just her, curled up on the couch in a blanket, pretending to sleep. I didn't speak. I walked to the bedroom, shut the door behind me, and stood there in the dark, staring at the dresser. Her side looked the same, perfume bottle, wedding photo, that little ceramic tray she kept her rings in. Only her rings weren't there. They weren't anywhere. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed with my back to the door, eyes wide open. Around 2 a.m. I heard her moving. I don't know if she checked to see if I was awake or just passed through, but I felt her standing there for a second. Then the soft click of the guest room door. She didn't try to come in, and I didn't want her to. The next day I called in sick. First time in 3 years. I just couldn't face numbers or screens or small talk from coworkers asking, "How was your wife's trip?" So I stayed home. She wasn't there when I got up. Just a sticky note on the fridge. Went to clear my head. Don't do anything stupid. That note. Like I was the unstable one. I spent the day pacing, thinking, questioning my own memory. Had it really been that bad between us? Had I missed every sign? Or had she just gotten bored of me? The quiet guy with spreadsheets and nothing new to offer? Around 4 I got the email. It wasn't from her. It was a restaurant confirmation. An upscale place downtown. Reservation under her name. For 2. That night. 7:30 p.m. She hadn't even logged out of our shared OpenTable account. So I did the only thing I could think of. I dressed up, grabbed my car keys, and drove straight there. I wasn't sure what I was planning. I wasn't even sure I'd walk inside. But by the time I saw her, seated at the table in that same red dress from the photos, laughing across the candlelight at a man I'd never seen before, I knew I wasn't turning back. I parked across the street and sat in the car for 10 minutes, watching them through the wide front window. The restaurant was the kind with soft jazz playing and waiters in black aprons who brought you water before you asked. Her back was to the glass. His wasn't. I could see his face clear as day, smooth, maybe early 40s, confident. He wasn't talking much, just nodding, listening, smiling, the kind of smile you save for someone you've already gotten used to touching. His hand was on the table. Hers rested inches from it, palm up, fingers relaxed. It was the kind of posture that only exists when someone feels safe, comfortable, like home. I walked in without a plan. My heart wasn't even racing. I felt something colder than rage. That strange, flat detachment when your brain realizes there's nothing left to salvage. The hostess smiled and asked if I had a reservation. I said no. Then I pointed. "I'm just here to join my wife." Her eyes followed my hand. The smile disappeared instantly. She didn't stop me, I reached the table as the waiter was pouring wine. She was mid-laugh. Her eyes lifted toward me, and the laughter died in her throat. It didn't break. It died. Not shock. Not guilt. Just stillness. The man looked at me, confused. Friend of yours. I pulled out the third chair. Something like that. She opened her mouth. Maybe to stop me, maybe to warn him, but I was already sliding my phone across the table. The screen showed the airdropped photo. Her in bed. With him. He froze. His hand pulled back slowly like it had touched a hot pan. You didn't tell him? I asked without even looking at her. No, she said quietly, without shame. Not yet. Wow, the guy muttered, pushing back in his chair. You said you were separated. She didn't argue, didn't deny, didn't beg, just folded her napkin and placed it on her plate. Like this was some awkward work dinner that needed to end. You said your husband was living in the guest room, he continued, rising now. You said he was seeing someone. I finally looked at her. Was I? She stared at me for a beat too long, then turned to him. You should go. He did, without another word, without finishing his wine. She didn't cry. She didn't explain. She just looked down at the table and whispered, You weren't supposed to find out like this. That broke something small in me, because it meant she had planned a way. Maybe a speech, a letter, a carefully managed disaster that didn't look like this mess. I stood up. You never planned to tell me. You planned to replace me quietly and hope I folded myself out of the picture. She didn't argue. I left without saying goodbye. Drove past our street. Kept going. My phone buzzed. Once. Then again. I didn't look. That night I didn't go home. I didn't tell anyone where I was. I just sat in a 24-hour diner, drinking coffee I didn't want, watching strangers pass through, wondering how many of them were quietly living the same kind of lie I just escaped. I came back 2 days later, not because I forgave her, but because I didn't know where else to go. Hotels felt like too much of a statement, and my pride was already spread thin across the dashboard of my car. She was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in, arms crossed, eyes red but dry. There were no candles, no warm meals, no speech waiting on the edge of her lips. Just that eerie silence again. The kind that used to mean comfort, now it just echoed. I thought you were gone for good, she said softly, as if that would have made things easier for her. I said nothing, just walked past her into the bedroom and grabbed a pillow and blanket. No dramatics, no slammed doors. She didn't stop me. She just sat there like a widow at her own funeral. That night I moved into the guest room. It felt like claiming the last piece of a house that was never mine to begin with. The bed was smaller, the mattress lumpy, but at least the air didn't smell like her shampoo. I locked the door not because I thought she'd come in, but because I needed something, anything that I could still control. The next morning we set rules. Like roommates, not spouses. We would split bills until we figured out the divorce. We wouldn't bring anyone to the apartment. We'd rotate who used the kitchen in the mornings. It was sickening how fast it became normal. I stopped referring to her as my wife in my head. She became Hollis, person I once knew. But even with the rules, things bled through. I found a receipt for a necklace in the trash. Not one I ever saw on her. A week later, her phone rang in the living room while she was in the shower. The name was just K. Again, that same initial. My stomach twisted like a clock wound too tight. I didn't answer it. I didn't have to. I already knew the ringtone by heart. The worst part? She never apologized. Not once. Not a real one. There were phrases. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought we were drifting. You've changed too, Corbin. But no remorse. No accountability. Just excuses wrapped in rationality, tied up in therapy speak. She had managed to narrate her betrayal like it was a phase, something she went through. One night I overheard her on a call. Her voice was low, barely above a whisper. But I heard enough. No, he's not really reacting. I think he's shutting down. Silence. No, I haven't told him about us moving in yet. He's still in the guest room. More silence. Then laughter. That was when I stopped being numb. That laugh lit something behind my ribs. Not rage, not heartbreak, just a quiet, focused clarity. She wasn't just moving on. She was replacing me while I was still under the same roof. And she was giving him the play-by-play. That night, I opened my laptop and started gathering documents. Lease agreements, bank statements, anything with both our names. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even survival. It was logistics. Because while she was planning a new beginning, I was quietly preparing to end things on my terms. A week passed, then two. The air between us turned thin, like stretched plastic wrap that neither of us wanted to tear, but both of us resented. We didn't fight. That would have required effort. Instead, we coexisted in an eerie truce, civil enough to avoid suspicion, detached enough to feel like strangers trapped in a shared lease. She came and went like clockwork, always dressed up, always with that same faint perfume that used to make me dizzy with comfort. Now it just made me nauseous. She stopped wearing her wedding ring entirely. It sat in the little ceramic tray beside her side of the sink, like an outdated accessory she'd eventually toss in a drawer. One morning I passed by the bathroom and caught her humming while applying makeup. The same tune she'd been humming the night she got back from Florida. It hit me then. She hadn't returned home. She'd merely stopped somewhere before going to her next destination. By now, I had every file saved. Copies of our shared assets, screenshots of her texts to Kay, backups of everything she once thought I was too passive to notice. I'd even discreetly met with a divorce attorney downtown. She wore wireframe glasses and didn't blink when I told her everything. She just took notes, asked sharp questions, and outlined a clean exit strategy. No courtroom theatrics, no drawn-out battles, just cold, precise detachment. Felt exactly right. The next Sunday morning, while she was out grocery shopping, a manila envelope slid under our apartment door. No name, just a thick corner poking out from beneath the rug. I stared at it for a long moment before picking it up. Inside were 5 photos. Hollis, him, smiling, holding hands, kissing. One in front of a condo building I didn't recognize. Another at a dog park. Our dog wasn't in it. But theirs was. I don't know who sent them. A friend? A neighbor? Maybe even someone in his life who wanted me to know the truth. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I wasn't crazy. That beneath all her manipulation and half-truths, I hadn't been imagining things. Someone else saw it too. And they wanted me to see it with my own eyes. When she came home with paper bags full of things I never requested, I was already seated at the kitchen table. The envelope sat in front of me. She saw it, paused, then kept walking, pretending not to care. "I'm making salmon for dinner," she said breezily. "You want any?" I didn't answer. She began unpacking the groceries, still humming, still pretending the envelope didn't exist. Like if she ignored it long enough, it would vanish. Finally, I spoke. "You're moving in with him, aren't you?" She didn't flinch, just kept placing herbs in the fridge. "What makes you say that?" "Because I've already spoken to a lawyer," I replied calmly. "Because your ring hasn't moved in 3 weeks. Because someone sent me photos." She closed the fridge, turned slowly. No guilt, just irritation. "You weren't supposed to make this difficult," she muttered. "You were just supposed to fade out." Those 5 words told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't just cheated on me. She'd written me out of her future like I was a typo in her life story. But I wasn't fading. Not anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken. I think that part of me had already burned out weeks ago. But because something in me had clicked into place. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes after you stop trying to understand a person who never intended to be understood. I wasn't grieving her anymore. I was waiting, calculating, watching the house I helped build turn into a stage for someone else's life. At 5:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. I was sitting on the floor of the guest room, sorting through a pile of papers for the 3rd time, making sure I hadn't missed anything. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in years. Clara Danvers, my college roommate's wife. We hadn't spoken since their wedding. I almost didn't open it, but I did. The subject line, "I don't know if you know." but you deserve to. Attached were 9 screenshots. The first one showed Hollis in a group chat. The second had a selfie of her and Clara's husband, Derek. They were laughing. The message below read, "This time next month. It's official. Lease is signed. He still thinks I'm figuring things out." Another showed her saying, "I've started clearing closet space. He hasn't noticed." The last one was a voice memo. I didn't even realize Gmail could play those. I hit play. Her voice came through, clear as if she was standing right beside me. "He's so passive. I swear, he'll just hand me the keys if I look sad enough. Honestly, the guilt is fading. I mean, if he really loved me, he would have fought harder." I sat there for a full minute after the audio ended, staring at nothing. Not because it hurt, not even because I was angry, but because I realized just how thoroughly she'd rewritten our history. I wasn't a husband to her anymore. I was an obstacle, a wall she had been waiting to see fall on its own. By 9 a.m., I was in motion. I called my attorney, signed the documents, arranged the notary. At 11:42 a.m., while Hollis was at a yoga brunch, her words, I printed 2 copies of the divorce agreement. One for her, one for me. I slid hers into a red folder, red, because subtlety wasn't the point anymore, and left it on the kitchen island. By 1 p.m., I had booked a storage unit. By 3:30 p.m., I had quietly moved out everything that was mine and not bolted down. Books, tech, tools, family heirlooms, the dog's medical records, and yes, the dog. He came with me. She never liked him much anyway. By 4:15 p.m., I wiped my presence from the apartment. I unplugged my router, removed my name from the electricity account. I even unlinked my Spotify from the smart speaker. When she came back, there would be no sign I'd ever been there, except for the red folder and the silence. And I didn't leave a note, just a text. "The keys are on the counter. You can stop pretending now." She didn't respond right away, but at 5:06 p.m., just as the sun was going down, she finally called. I let it ring, then I powered off the phone. I don't know what time she walked in, but I know what she walked into. No music, no scent of dinner cooking, no half-argued notes on the fridge, just a vacuum, stillness, and that red folder on the counter, standing out like a wound that had already healed. I imagine she called my name first, probably expecting me to appear from the guest room or the balcony with my usual quiet, confused expression. But I wasn't there. Not the way she remembered. Not the way she needed me to be in that moment. She must have opened the folder, seen the neatly signed divorce papers, the itemized list of everything I took, and the bold letters at the bottom, effective immediately. She texted. A string of frantic messages that came hours after I'd turned my phone back on. They ranged from shocked confusion to indignant blame. Then silence. For once, her silence. But by then, I was already in my new apartment. A modest 1-bedroom on the 3rd floor with creaky floors and ugly wallpaper. But it was mine. Every sound belonged to me. Every object in its place. And the dog, Baxter, curled up at my feet like he'd finally unclenched something inside himself. 2. A few friends reached out. Word had spread, apparently. Some were surprised, others not so much. One of them said something I'll never forget. Quiet men don't stay quiet. They just wait until the door is wide enough to walk through without looking back. The following week, I went hiking. Alone. Left my phone in the car. At the summit, I stood there with nothing to prove, no one to convince, and for the first time in what felt like years, I could breathe without checking how it made someone else feel. She never apologized, never asked to meet. I think, deep down, she knows there's nothing left of me that belongs to her. I let her rewrite the ending of our story for too long. Now I've taken the pen back. And the final page is mine now. Thank you for following this journey on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever walked away from a situation that was silently breaking you, and came out stronger on the other side, share your story in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more real-life stories that'll make you feel seen, shaken, and sometimes healed.